Totally backseat.
There's all these cool little buttes on the south side of Government Camp, and I'm not going to say they don't get enough attention because I'm not sure what enough attention would even look like, and these parking areas can all get plenty crowded on just about any winter weekend, but people don't often hike to the top of these little hills in the wintertime, and that's too bad. One of my new favorites for backcountry skiing is Barlow Butte. Starting at the Barlow Pass trailhead, the route to the top of Barlow Butte climbs about 1,000 feet over 2.3 miles. The route starts out following the route of the old Barlow Road, which was the original road white immigrants used to cross over the Cascades in the mid-1800s. Sam Barlow charged a toll to use this road. I don't charge a toll to watch this content, but you can help me out by liking, subscribing, and then navigating to patreon.com/voiceovertrails and becoming a patron. Now, the route does start out losing about 200 feet of elevation over the first half mile, but don't panic. You'll get plenty of climbing in soon enough. Travel down the Barlow Road for about a quarter mile until you arrive at this intersection. Turn left down the trail where you see these fine folks climbing out after a well-deserved day of hard-earned turns. This section of trail after the first turn is the most alarmingly downhill section on this trail, but don't worry, you won't need to peel off your skins. It's just under the threshold where you'd need to convert your skis. The forest in here is typical lovely Mount Hood National Forest subalpine woods with lots of old trees and just plain overall loveliness. Presently, you'll arrive at this signboard where you'll want to turn left after crossing this little creek. If you're not on these expeditions to enjoy the woods, you're doing it wrong. Don't misunderstand me, the skiing is awesome and definitely worth the trip all by itself, as you'll see in a moment. But just keep in mind that the woods here are awesome too. But for me, skiing is often just an excuse to get out here and play around in the woods. Eventually, the forest opens up nicely as the butte comes into view. Like I said, this first section is pretty flat, and the track actually trends kind of downhill here for a little while before bottoming out right before the climb starts. And when you get here, you'll want to head off to the right. There's a bit more flat to slightly downhill skiing along this road grade before you get to this little corridor hiding out along the side of the road. This is where we met at the beginning of the climb. Once the actual climbing starts, this becomes a proper backcountry ski skin up, complete with steep grades, side hilling, and kick turns. But I'm going to say it again until I'm blue in the face. I just love the forest in here. The trees actually get more awesome with the ascent, as the forest seems to get older the higher you climb. It seems as if a lot of this forest managed to escape the relentless assault of the chainsaws. And then, like magic, if you're here on a clear day and remember to trend toward the northeast corner of the summit of this thing, you'll break out on this lovely view on a clear day that just makes the whole thing seem worth it. It's also the only real exposure on this whole tour, so enjoy it. This is still Pacific Northwest Forest after all. And so begins the final approach toward the summit through some thick underbrush until you get here, to the tippy top. For our first descent, we chose the northeast aspect, as we wanted to stay relatively close to our climbing track since we planned to summit this twice. Of course, we lucked out with the powder conditions this day, but that's not what you're here to learn about, as snow conditions are variable. What's not variable is the almost perfect spacing of the trees in here, at least from the perspective of backcountry skiing in the Mount Hood National Forest. Unlike some of the other buttes around here, the trees on this one are far enough apart to leave room for even intermediate tree skiers to find a way down. Also, the butte is the perfect steepness from top to bottom. You are, of course, watching my warm-up run here, and I'm way out of practice downhill skiing, so this is kind of embarrassing video. In any case, this is an awesome run. This northeast slope here is also the one I'd choose on a day I was worried about avalanches, and I'll include more about that in a minute. Anyway, don't descend all the way back to the road. Do what we did here and pick up the skin track so you can climb back to the top for a second run. The west-facing aspect of the butte is much steeper than the northeast aspect. There's also lighter tree cover near the top of it, and that led to a relatively mobile top layer of snow that looked like it could avalanche under the right conditions, so keep that in mind. If you want to find out what avalanche conditions are like before you come out here, which you should, you need to go to the Northwest Avalanche Center website, nwac.org, and also you should be checking those avalanche forecasts before you come out here in the first place. They're extremely useful, and if you frequent these woods, you also need to be donating to NWAC so that they can keep putting those avalanche forecasts together for all of us. If the avalanche danger is high, according to Northwest Avalanche Center's website, stay off the west aspect and opt for the northeast side. That disclaimer aside, the skiing is superb on the west slope. If you can only get one run in for the day, this is absolutely the descent to choose. Now, I'm going to put GPS coordinates to this glade you're going to want to ski to in the description. It's important that you put that coordinate into your GPS and navigate to this clearing. The skiing is awesome in here. Overall, for most intents and purposes, this slope was the funnest one. But that awesomeness comes with a catch. And that catch is that navigating out of here is a little bit trickier. There are multiple watercourses and creek beds to traverse, and the fall line kind of wants to take you to a big, ugly creek crossing. So pay close attention to navigation in here to ensure that you're not off course. Things could get kind of ugly if you're not careful, but the slope does slacken out a little here near the bottom, which is pretty nice. We were able to treat this lower section like a playground as the trees were relatively open, so there was just enough room to maneuver around in here. Maybe it seems silly, but I just loved coasting through the trees here. The trees were perfectly spaced. The grade was the perfect level of steepness, and everything just came together. It helped that the snow was excellent as well. One important detail to keep in mind is not to ski all the way down to Barlow Creek. You don't want to try to cross Barlow Creek. Stay on the contour just above Barlow Creek and ski out on the Devil's Half Acre Trail. It'll join back up with the Barlow Road, and you can then leave exactly the way you came in. Overall, I recommend the crap out of this route. You gotta do this. You've gotta ski this. If you're an intermediate to advanced skier, you need to ski Barlow Butte. I'm coming back for sure. Now, I'd like to take this moment to thank all of my Patreon supporters, especially my Low Me Goodness level sponsors Andy Suri, Brad Goodson, and Charles Kim. I'd also like to thank my Hero Dirt level sponsors earning their special mention at the end of this video: Brian Fix, Bryce Ulrich, Devin Young, Edward Lanton, and Pedro Cantarini. If you'd like to join this deep and powdery list of sponsors, navigate to patreon.com/voiceovertrails and sign up to support this work at a level that you find appropriate. Now, get out there and go shred some pow.